Good morning, everybody. It's Bernard Nomberg. It is 10 o'clock on Tuesday. So that is time for our weekly Nomberg Law Live conversations. And as you guys hear me say every week, I have interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And I am so pleased to have my friend and colleague, Leslie Barineau, with me today as my guest. Good morning, Leslie, and thank you for making some time for us today. I hope your day's going well.
It's great. Hello, Bernard. Thank you so much for having me a guest on this. God, this impressive show. It's so exciting what you're doing.
Well, you must have, thank you. I assume that that means you must have recently spoken to my mother about how impressive this show
Well,
is. But thank you for
well,
the kind
I'm not going to share my secrets like that, Bernard.
Thank you for the kind words. But guys, I've asked Leslie to be a guest today because we've got a topic that doesn't get much attention, but Leslie does such a beautiful job in what she does on a day-to-day and weekly, monthly basis that I really felt like we needed to highlight it. Leslie's an attorney here in town. We do similar work. We've worked on committees and organizations and just been in colleagues for so many years, and we really admire what she has done in her practice. But what we're going to talk about a little bit today is why it's important for lawyers to be involved in organizations that impact their practices. And before we really get into that, I should have done this first, Leslie. Tell a little bit about your practice and about yourself, and then we're going to jump into today's topic.
Okay. I guess about myself is I will say this. I have just become a grandmother. Back in November, my son and his
Congrats.
wife, Alexander and Braylon, have welcomed a baby girl, Olivia James Barineau, on November the 10th. So, of course, um, I'm excited about that, and that's certainly completely something a new role for me. So that's a wonderful thing in my life right now. I've been practicing law 37 years. I feel like a kid. I wish I looked like a kid again, but I've been practicing 37 years. I do workman's comp, of course, like you do, Bernard. I do personal injury. I do divorce, which is not so happy at times, most of the times, and I do probate, do a lot of probate work. So just a general, a general practice working with people. What excites me the most is, having a client that I maybe helped on a probate matter, then come see me if they get hurt on the job or vice versa. So that is great. I got a letter, about 5 months ago from a woman who I did their adoption, and they sent me a picture of the young boy graduating from high school. And
Oh, how
what
cool.
an impact that one legal transaction made on their whole entire life. Needless to say, I've kept that and I cried, you know.
Well, those tears of joy just bring memories of things that
Yeah,
we may do every day in our practice.
right.
And we're not as emotionally tied to the events because we're in a professional capacity, not in a personal capacity. But you're right. It's those things that we don't elevate in our mind or in our memories of what we've done that
That's
make
right.
can make such a tremendous impact on the lives of others. And the fact that they sent you that card so many years later to show you how that child has developed, that's what it's about for us.
Oh, I loved it. Loved
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. The other thing, in addition to your thriving and long sustaining practice, Leslie, one of the things that really I think sets you apart from many others who are our colleagues in the community is your involvement with organizations, professional organizations. And there's several we could list, but I know that the statewide, you've acted nationally as well, representing our state. Share a little bit of maybe your theories or your approach to, as from a lawyer standpoint, being involved in organizations and why it's important.
I think, well, it's important for so many reasons, but the one thing I think that's just important from a personal thing, it's fun. And people might say it's fun. I said, yeah, it is fun. It's fun to meet other lawyers from all different specialties, lawyers that you would never meet in your practice, because your practices, don't ever correspond or cross section.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important is because we have one thing in common. We're all lawyers. And I think all of us deep down, whether we go about gushing about it like I do sometimes, is that we want to make our profession better. As we work with the lives of so many people in our community, we want to make sure that we have got a strong profession. And I think the way we do that is through these organizations. Yes, it takes time, but you have the opportunity to work in a collaborative effort with other lawyers to accomplish the mission of the goals of the committee, of the organization. And golly molly, you learn a lot. You just learn a lot.
No, you're so right. The collective knowledge is amazing sometimes when you get in these organizations and more specifically maybe committees or leadership roles. I know you've done all of those things, but you know what doesn't sell newspapers or headlines is the good that lawyers can do. What sells headlines is the bad stuff that lawyers do. That's what movies are made out of, or the TV special of the week.
That's right.
So a lot of these things, being part of organizations where you don't have any limelight, where there's no publicity, that's where you get all the work really done.
Right.
And I want to take the Birmingham Bar to start there. I think it's a fantastic organization.
I do too. It's wonderful.
It's over 100 years old.
Mhm.
And what people don't appreciate or may not realize is its positive impact that it has, not just in the Birmingham metro area, not just statewide, but it has impact nationally. And I know you've been part of the Birmingham Bar Association for many, many years.
Right. I was fortunate when I started practicing to be around people who were very involved in the Bar Association. And they, as a young lawyer, and were fixing to celebrate our 100th anniversary, they shared with me the impact that it had had on their career, one of them being Judge Carol Privet, and how that can broaden and enrich your practice. We got to do something more than just sit at this desk, or go to court. I mean, we've got to do more than that. Being a lawyer is so much more than that.
You're so right. Time can get away from lawyers so very quickly.
Right.
And if you don't look up and see what's going on, it's kind of like what Ferris Bueller said, life moves fast. And
it does.
If you don't catch that wave, but I'm so glad that you mentioned Judge Privet. Judge Privet's a fellow Vanderbilt grad like myself. She's coming on the show in a couple of weeks.
Oh, good.
And we're going to tie a little bit of what you and I are talking about today, but knowing her, we're going to get into sports. We're going to get into a myriad of topics knowing her.
I want you to ask her about her Vanderbilt Christmas tree, okay?
Oh, I absolutely will.
All right.
I absolutely will. Leslie, I want to pivot a little bit away from our local Birmingham Bar Association, and I want to talk about other organizations and how exponentially you start local, I would say, but then you go state and then regional and then national. And eventually I want you to talk about you representing was it the bar commissioners? I can't remember the national organization where you represented our state a couple of years ago.
Well, two things on the national level. One is with at the ABA level. I'm on I still am I sit in the House of Delegates for our state bar. I'm one of the House of Delegate members, and that's the governing body of the ABA, where policies, procedures are discussed and voted on. And then they become a part of the laws and policies of the ABA. And that is always, oh my gosh, it is such a rewarding experience. It's set up like the House of Representatives, kind of like in a horseshoe shape. You have people that are in charge that are sitting, the chair of the House sitting on a dais, but then you sit behind a sign that says your state. And so I am sitting with our other delegates from Alabama, and I can tell you, it is the proudest. It makes me so proud to be sitting there. Hey, I'm from Alabama, take notice. and we have different opinions in our delegation on things. And I'll punch so-and-so, and say, well, you're going to vote yes on this, aren't you? And they say, well, I don't know about. I said, well, and then we'll talk about, well, yes, you really should. But I'm very proud to be doing that. The state bar asked me if I wanted to do that. I said, absolutely, I sure do.
Well, when I learned several years ago about your involvement in this, I told David, my brother and law partner, I could think of no better representative from our state, from our bar, than you to represent us. So I know that you enjoy that work. I
Right.
know that it's meaningful work because it impacts a tremendous amount of
Yes.
people. And I know that you don't look for publicity. I know you well enough to know you're not a look at me, think kind of person.
Right.
But I think that that's why I wanted you to be on the show today, is to point out there's a lot of what I'll call legwork, behind the scenes work,
Oh, yes.
that there's so many contributors that it ultimately you guys can hopefully come to a consensus and do things that help the greater
Right.
greater good. But besides being on that delegation, wasn't there another
Yes, there was.
opportunity that you had?
Right. I was on the National Conference of Bar Foundations. It is an organization that's made up of bar foundations all over the country, and it provides leadership, governance, programming, organizational skills, resources to bar foundations throughout the country as they try to deliver, justice for people. And yes, I went through the leadership role on that, and I was eventually president of that organization. I was treasurer, vice president in charge of programming, secretary. So I absolutely love that because it made me so proud. Once again, at that time, I was on the board of trustees with the Birmingham Bar Foundation,
Mm.
and it made me so proud to say, hey, you've got a Birmingham girl here, because a lot of times they're from, New York or Chicago or some of these very big places. And I just kept, hanging in their face. I'm from Birmingham. I'm from Birmingham. I'm from Birmingham.
Oh, that
So I loved it. I mean, the people, the friends I have made throughout the country, it's priceless. It's just absolutely priceless.
it really is, from a networking standpoint, from a friendship, a human to human standpoint, and we're hearing the benefits. And that, guys, I'm talking with Birmingham attorney Leslie Barineau. We're discussing the benefits of joining professional organizations. Not only does it help out your practice,
Oh, yes.
but even more importantly, it helps you out from a personal standpoint, making friends and just staying connected, which is so even more so important during this pandemic than it's ever been in my adult time period when I've recognized or realized those kind of things. Leslie, I do want to talk about joining organizations versus being an active member, a member role, whether you're an officer on a committee, heading a committee. It's one thing to put on a LinkedIn line, hey, I belong to so and so organization. But it's a whole nother thing to say, hey, I spearhead this committee, or I'm on this, I'm the officer for this upcoming year. We've all done both
Right.
roles, but I know you don't just sit on the sidelines.
No.
You're in the arena, so to speak. You get involved. Why is it important to you to take active roles in these organizations?
I don't know of any other way that you can give back to what I think being a lawyer is absolutely the most rewarding thing in my life. That is who I am. Yes, I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother, but I'm a lawyer, and I'm so proud of that. And I've been blessed. I'm very blessed and fortunate. And I don't know of anywhere else that I can give back and work, whether it's a committee, to make our profession better.
Mhm.
And if you, let's say you don't ever want to be in a leadership role in an organization, okay, that's fine. Not everybody wants to be in a leadership role, but you're being a leader just by being involved. If you sign up to be on a committee, by golly, show up
Yeah.
and put input, because how can we continue to make this a great profession if we don't work through? All organizations go through tough times, good times, bad times, good public. Okay, stop whining about it and get involved
Yeah.
and work on the inside out to fix it. And
Yeah.
you can do that at your Birmingham Bar Association at the committee level.
Yeah.
Find a committee that you're passionate about. You and I might be passionate about different things. Okay, that's great, but just show up. But if you sign up, go to your meetings and participate.
It's so,
Nothing
so true.
absolutely makes me madder
Yeah.
than people who just are, use it like you said for resume builders or LinkedIn. I really have little tolerance for that.
Our mutual colleague and buddy Larry King has said many, many times about the responsibilities we have as lawyers, whether it's in our local community or wider sphere. We have that responsibility to be leaders in our communities.
Right.
And by doing so, I think you have to give back to the community, because when you are given that law license that you have earned and the state bar recognizes that you're a lawyer, there's not only that right now that you have and that privilege you've earned,
Mhm.
but the responsibilities that go with it.
Right.
And for those of you watching live or watching this later, that's why I have Leslie on our show today, because in my opinion, my humble opinion, she's one of the very best examples of why you become a lawyer. She does great work for her clients and has for years. But as you've mentioned, Leslie, it's not just about representing clients in your cases. You've got to step aside and make time. And I think that's the key thing right there, because you have to have a mindset that I'm going to do my work, but I've also got other work I need to do,
Mhm.
being on committees, joining organizations, and giving back. How has, and in doing so, Leslie, and being on these organizations, being an officer, being the various things that you have done, how has that benefited your legal practice?
I'm really glad you asked me that. And I think that it's done this way. First of all, I have gotten to know lawyers from various practices, practice sets, whether it's criminal, whether it's heavy duty commercial, whether it's heavy duty, business transactions, which I don't do. So it puts me, I think, in a position to a couple of things. If I all of a sudden get in a case with somebody I don't know, if I've served on a bar committee with that person, then we already have a relationship.
Yeah.
And we already have a relationship. And yes, that does benefit my client because we're starting out on good, for the most part, good footing. We might not have agreed on everything in our committee work, but we would have already had a relationship built and hopefully, worked together well. So instead of starting out, well, not knowing somebody, then yes, cases can certainly get adversarial really quickly sometimes. But I just think if we already have that base connection, then it makes it easier that way, to be honest with you. And another thing is if I think we want our clients to call us when they need legal help, whether or not we can help them, but we want to be that go-to person. Leslie, I need somebody that does patent and trademark litigation. Do you know anybody?
Yeah.
Well, yes, I do. And the only reason why I know that that's certainly not my practice is because I've probably been on a committee or on an organization with somebody that I can pick up the phone and call and
Yeah.
start there. I like that. I think that's a benefit to our clients.
Absolutely. The networking is, you can't
It's,
measure it a lot of
there's,
times. But
there's
the
no way to
reverse is
measure it.
also true. If a patent lawyer gets a phone call from someone
Yeah.
who has been hurt on the job and they've dealt with you in a committee, you may be one of their first persons that pops up. I need to call Leslie Barineau.
Right. And see, that is a big thing. That's honestly, that's one of the selfish reasons for being involved, because you've got, I think, instant marketing. You're not spending any money on billboards, signs, print, you're
Right.
just yourself. That's just your time. And yes, I understand that's valuable, but it's just your time, and that's important.
Let's say that somebody who is just passed the bar, or they've only been out a couple of years, and they work at a big firm. They work at
Mhm.
one of the large firms in town, but they want to get involved in some way. And let's say they want to start maybe on the local level, but they don't know where to go, what to do. What do you suggest to those young lawyers, whether they're with a big firm or maybe they're a solo like yourself or a small firm like Dave and me? What do you suggest for people just to get started? How do they do that?
I think the first thing you have got to join, in our case, your Birmingham Bar Association, join that local bar. That is the best place to get started, and you can get plugged in right away. And then take a look. You can't join everything. You cannot join everything, whether you're like me solo, like you and David, or a big firm. We don't have the time, and you certainly want to, like I said, if you get involved, participate. But if you're a young lawyer, I think in our Birmingham bars, I think the young lawyer section is wonderful. I was kind of older when I started practicing, and only was involved in it for a very short period of time because I unfortunately aged out. But I see the great works that young lawyer section does in our community. They're very well respected. They're very active. So I definitely would think that. If you are a small firm solo person, which 5 lawyers or less, then join the small firm solo section. It is, I'm proud to say I was the second chair, and I was involved in organizing that section. And it's wonderful. I mean, I'm still involved in it after all these years because it's a wonderful section. So, there might be another section that you're passionate about that more dovetails your practice, but just pick a couple of sections. You only have to do it for, just try it for a year.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't like that. Let me try something else. So that's what I think. And anybody that wants to call me, I'll talk with anybody about it,
Well, that's, and I put a link, guys, folks who are just watching, I put a link to Leslie's website in the show notes. I also put a link to the Birmingham Bar Association.
Perfect.
And the people who run the Birmingham Bar Association are so good at what they do. They're
Yeah,
very proactive. They
right,
want you to be involved with the bar. That's why you pay your dues. That's why
right.
you belong there. And there's a laundry list of organizations. There must be 25 organizations. Something there must appeal to you, but you got to make the decision
Right.
that you want to get in. You don't have to dive in. You can stick a toe in and test it, but
Yeah.
that's why we're having this conversation. We want to recognize, we want to point out why it's important for your practice, but even more importantly, for yourself personally. It's making those connections, it's networking, it's building friendships.
And I want
Leslie,
to say the Birmingham Bar Foundation, I do want to get in about
huh?
being involved in the Birmingham Bar Foundation. I like to think that, as one of my friends used to say, that our foundations are the heart of our organizations because you can really get involved passionately about various things. And we have a wonderful Birmingham Bar Foundation. Wonderful.
Well, Leslie, thank you for spending some time with me today on Nomberg Law Live. This was exactly the kind of conversation I was hoping that we would have.
Well, I hope I did all right, Bernard, and thank you for letting me be a guest.
Absolutely. And guys, this is why I have interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise, and Leslie Barineau certainly fits that bill. It's important as a lawyer to take your responsibilities seriously, not just with your practice, but in the community. And one way to do so is to join organizations, to get involved, be involved. Networking, friendships, all of it counts. All of it is good.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you, Leslie, for spending some time with us today. And as I say every week, continue to be safe out there. Do what's right for you and your family. And we'll be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific for another weekly episode of Nomberg Law Live.
Bye. See ya.